It's dramatic, it's gritty, it's war-filled, and there's guns in it. It must be Modern Warfare for the third time. Yes, a reboot, remake, rehash, redo of whatever it has been before has come round again, because confusion comes and stems from the title. Therefore, it's always good to just call it the same thing, and therefore no one gets confused and they know what they're getting. The same thing again. Playing the campaign, which this version covers here at the moment. I've already covered the multiplayer version from the alpha, which you can check that out, but there is more to come in the final release. The first thing to cover is, my god, this game personifies modern digital download games to a T. Yes, the disc only gives you around 9 gig of install, and that gives you bugger all. You can't even play it, you can't even get into a game or anything. You then have to sit through hours of downloads, 50, 60 gigs worth of download on Xbox One X, PS4 Pro. The Xbox One X does seem a bigger package, but I don't believe it actually has any additional texture details or anything out like that. It's just a bigger binary collection, and then they're all split off because different teams did all the work. So just like a DevOps deployment package, this is just multiple versions coming from different teams, all centralized and then pushed out to your individual console as you request it from the deployment center. So it's a little bit like software development for your own console, because here you are downloading the latest patches, and even on day of release, which was yesterday, I downloaded it last night and then came to play it, and it already had another update. Luckily, I couldn't be bothered downloading that again, so this is version 1.03 that's running here. There is version 1.04, it's probably on version 1.07 by now. This game feels hot in more places than one. It's not quite ready for prime time on certain machines, but I'll cover that when I get to it. So most importantly, that everyone concerns themselves about resolution. So PS4 Pro comes in very similar to what I covered in the alpha, 1920 by 2160. With a form of temporal anti-aliasing to reconstruct that image back to 3840 by 2160. It never natively hits that point, and I have had points here dropping down to 1620 on the height, but I didn't see it go any lower than 1920 on the width. But I haven't played the entire game, I've gone through certain parts of the campaign. Those are the preliminary accounts, so it goes from 1920 by 2160 down to 1920 by 1620 at the moment, which is a sizable discount in terms of pixel throughput, which helps the performance levels, which I'll touch on in a moment. The Xbox One X then comes out obviously much better. 3840 by 2160 is achieved quite often in the single player campaign, but I have seen it drop down to 3520 by 1800 and potentially a little lower than that, but I'm not too sure. It's a very hard game to count, and I do need to spend more time looking at various sections of the game and going all the way through the single player campaign. It's made by different teams using the same engine, of course, but ultimately there is very different versions at play here in terms of single player campaign, spec ops, and then obviously the multiplayer sections, which I'll cover in other videos. In terms of image quality, there's no surprise the Xbox One X is the much sharper and cleaner of the two, and that reconstruction method that's being used on the PS4 Pro due to the lower native resolution and that very strong and aggressive TAA does deliver a very soft, slightly blurry image, which never really convinces anyone that it's 4K on a 4K screen. It does look excellent, mind, and the HDR solution here is brilliant, but a lot of that comes down to the fact that the lighting, the material system in this game, and the improvements they've made to the game overall, the engine has significantly improved here to a point where there has been drastic changes to the original base engine. They're using excellent material systems, lighting interaction, the BRDFs and possibly even SSDFs. You can see lots of subsurface scattering and certain elements of cutscenes and in gameplay, so some of that could be fixed, but they have massively improved their material and lighting system, which includes their extensive use of fog volumes, voxelized grids that sample both light and shadow for occluders, which are used extensively across both day and nighttime sections.
We need evac now.
Roger. Tracking multiple Russian forces headed your way. Sit tight. We're pushing to you for fast exfil. Watch her out.
He's in the open. Got a target. Watch his gun light. Move when he's offline. Enemy 10 meters out.
From the helicopter. I'll cover you. Guards get in your way. Take them out. Quietly. Meet back here when you're through.
Freedom fight. Next to elaborate. Threaten the safety.
Guards on the entry.
Security of those
If you engage.
We have intel Russian troop commanders are in town today. We're going to ambush them.
They have said it's a new engine. it's not a new engine. It's been significantly upgraded, improved, and therefore you can class it as a new engine. But I do suspect this is the base framework that we've seen on previous Call of Duty titles, significantly improved, like I say, but not a complete baby out with the bathwater situation where they've started again from scratch. But the significant improvements from the PBR-based material, which I believe they're using photogrammetry here to help that quality, and it is absolutely excellent. One of the best, in fact, I've seen in a game, especially at 60 FPS. Across the board, the volumetric lighting and that aggressive culling they're using in the title to improve the geometry load on screen. You see that in facial animations on characters. The animation system, the physics, the interaction with the world, they've all been improved here from the single player campaign. But you do get some issues with the culling. You get moments where boxes and things can actually disappear, be cool when you turn the camera. Therefore, volumetric light that was actually occluded by a box can pop back into view and back again when you turn the camera around. It's very minor, you do spot it. It's more aggressive in the multiplayer campaign for obvious reasons. But visually, it's very impressive across the board. The Xbox One X takes that biscuit though as the better looking of the two because it's sharper, cleaner, and it suffers less from that reconstruction element, which I suspect it isn't using, or at least it's using a different method at a much higher level. So there is an argument here to say I would love to have an option to see what a standard 2560 by 1440 would look like on the PS4 Pro over this reconstruction checkerboard or whatever else they're doing in terms of their solution on the Pro. But you can see the difference between the X and the Pro in visual quality without side-by-sides, but side-by-sides just emphasise the clarity improvement. So is that a winner then? Does that make the Xbox One the better version, the Xbox One X? No, because there was one big problem, and it's quite stark, in fact. The Xbox One X, as you can see now, performs much, much worse than the PS4 Pro. The PS4 Pro has been the lead platform. That's obvious. It's a partner with Sony's, and that's pretty evident from this released version. The PS4 Pro really delivers almost a solid locked 60 FPS, no tearing, perfectly synced throughout the single player campaign in many tested sections, and more that you're not seeing here. I have no issues at all with the performance on the Pro. It's probably one of the best performing Modern Warfare titles I've ever played, and certainly Call of Duty titles. I do say Modern Warfare is in the plural there because obviously we've had quite a few. It looks excellent, it plays excellent, and it performs beautifully on the Pro. Sadly, the same cannot be said for the Xbox One X. It does suffer. Some of this is obviously down to the fact that it's significantly pushing more pixels over the base PS4 Pro, so that's one issue, which is arguably slightly a stretch too far at 60 FPS and 4K, but I don't think all of it stems down to that. Some of the jitters, stutters and issues seem to come from general instability from the API. It's not standard GPU issues. You're getting stutters and judders from just walking through rooms, loading sector points. There's lots of little issues here. Memory placement, textures load in and stream in and out of RAM. Certainly on some of the real-time cutscenes, you can see textures, bitmaps changing in real time in front of your eyes from low to high, and nothing's changed. And they are very aggressive with their culling in this game. So all these elements can add and impact the performance much more, and you get, as you see, lots and lots of stutters, and then high levels of VSync tearing. The top third of the screen can tear. So in addition to this, it can tear quite often in volumetric sections, big battles, and then dip and stutter for long periods of time. Up to 300 milliseconds at certain points. It can judder as you walk, and it loads certain sectors, auto-save. So there's lots of issues here. I'm not even going to second guess. One additional caveat to add is I had to repeat the entire test again because I had some performance issues and I wasn't quite sure it was this bad. So I had to restart and reset the console, which I always do, but occasionally the Xbox One X, as the S, the operating system causes issues with the hibernate mode, which I don't use, and it can cause the console to perform much worse. Memory allocation, CPU cache, and all those kind of areas can get worse, therefore it causes you longer stutters. So I did that. The downside is, as I mentioned before, patches are coming all the time. So there was a newer patch. I'm now running 109. I think it's moved on from there since, or the 107 I think it was. And 103 was the version I tested originally, and performance is slightly better. It's still not better as the PS4 Pro, but it is better than it was on the other version. So just be sure you restart your console from scratch, do a full reset in the menu system, because sometimes that can exacerbate some of the issues you see here, and it certainly did here. Like I say, it doesn't resolve the issues, it just makes them slightly better. But I'm sure right now there's lots of release candidates being shipped and patch versions being shipped to different companies across the board to get them out for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and of course that will obviously mean the PC as well. I will be covering the base versions very soon, and obviously covering the multiplayer and a lot more in terms of the engine upgrades, the visual quality on offer, and what's been delivered in this new version of Modern Warfare. But for now, this is it. The one frustration, like I've mentioned before though, is the fact that this is a digital release on a physical disc. There's nothing more than that. This is a bit of a shame because you're downloading effectively 60 gig. So that is frustrating. And then I also had some issues connecting to Xbox Live at certain points when I jumped into it on the Xbox One X. Luckily, once the game is installed and on your system, you can play the single player in offline mode, so that's a benefit. But performance-wise, the X is far, far worse and below, really, expectation for a title like this. I hope that the multiplayer is much better, which I'll be covering soon, and I hope the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One S perform much better, but you'll find that out tomorrow when I dive into that title. As for now, this is a quick look at the title in terms of single player, which obviously hadn't had much information up until this point. It's impressive, it's a COD game, it feels like a Netflix movie in terms of story quality. The pre-rendered cutscenes are very good, they're 30 FPS, but it's very short, but it does enough to tick the box to say this is definitely a Call of Duty title you're playing. Anyway, I'll catch you very soon on the next one.
Let's move everywhere. Good.
I see you. You armed up? You armed up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Captain Price,
Sergeant Garrick.
you with me? Check those corners.
Up here!
Hostages.